Meeting called to order. Again, today is Tuesday, April 1st. West Warwick Town Council acting as a sewer commission for the wastewater fiscal year 26 budget workshop. Multiple.
Council President Gosling.
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson.
Here.
Councilman Messier.
Here.
Councilman Chardy.
Here.
Councilman Dennison.
Here.
Participating communities: Town of Coventry, Town of Situate, City of Cranston, City of Warwick, Town of West Greenwich. Quorum is declared Council President. Next item is the budget workshop.
You want to give a overview to them?
Superintendent has some opening comments. Council President.
Evening, Council. So, Tony sent out an email yesterday morning. I don't know if you had a chance to review it, take a look at it, go over it or not. First, before I get started, I just want to say thank you to Tony. He does a lot of work into this. He talks with me, talks with the finance director, vendors. So he does a really good job putting this together for us. So, okay. So right now, the wastewater department is requesting an amount of $10,598,448 for the budget. It's an increase of over $1 million. Reasons for this are the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank bond that we used to take out this year for projects like our East Natick Interceptor line repair, the Maisie Quinn pump station, and our UV and SCADA projects. The estimated payment for that bond is going to be $344,620. Some other big line items that we have are pension contributions have gone up about $318,000, and our sludge removal, which we talked about mostly month to month, is going up about $380,000. So we have some big ticket items that we have to pay for this year. Looking over the budget, we were able to make some reductions in line maintenance, our electrical and instrumentation line item, our UV system parts line item, and our capital budget. With all that being said, what we're proposing tonight is a 20-cent increase in the budget from $4.65 to $4.85 per cubic feet of usage. Along with that, we're asking for a debt service charge of $35 per EDU to help cover the cost of the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank bond. Some numbers that Tony provided for us yesterday: the minimum sewer user would increase a total of $43, so that's $35 per EDU, and $8 from the proposed rate increase. Average users would see an annual increase of $49, again, $35 per EDU, and then $14 for the proposed rate increase. Their yearly bill would go from $445.50 to $494.50. Well users would also increase $55, pointing for the rate increase and $35 for the EDU, from about $585 to $640. So, as he stated, by way of comparison, had we not been able to reduce expenses that I mentioned from earlier, the rate increase would have been around 40 cents per 100 cubic feet of usage. That's all I have for now, and I want to turn over to Tony if he wants to make a few comments.
Thanks, Superintendent. There will be a slight tweak to the budget between now and our first public hearing in 2 weeks. Late this afternoon, I received the renewal premiums from the interlocal trust on property liability and workers' comp. They had originally advised me to budget for a 7% increase in both. Property liability will only go up 3.16%, and workers' comp, let me make sure I say this clearly, is going to decrease 10% versus this year. So overall, you'll see about a $20,000 reduction in those two line items before I present the budget for public hearing. And those are the only comments I have, Council President, if anybody has any questions.
So Jeff, you know my feelings about EDUs.
Yes.
One pipe to the house, but you're gonna charge every piece of unit as an EDU. I know we went from this many years ago, and I know me and the previous councilman in Ward 4 were anti-EDU. And here we are gonna raise up EDU, and you're right, single family houses are gonna see a $35, $40 increase, but those two family home owner occupied, same family, are gonna see an $80 increase. So, when are we gonna stop with the EDUs? Because it's one pipe in, one pipe out. I
So-
just don't.
The $35 per EDU is gonna be for our debt service charge.
I understand, but every time we go to something, we hit EDU. And I'm totally against EDU increases. We've already hit every homeowner, an average elderly person, when I talk about elderly, who probably showers every other day, one load of laundry a week. Probably uses 1/3 the water an average person uses. And they're paying just as much as me or as a single family home. When we hit that EDU years ago, that's all that called me was elderly with, based off water usage, who didn't use that much water. And they saw an increase of $100 to $200 more a year in their sewer. Now, here we are, 7, 8 years later, gonna hit them again for another $100.
Mhm.
You know, for multifamily elderly, you know, I'm not a fan of EDU, I'm just not. I get why it happened, but I'm just, if we're gonna raise EDU, I'm not for it. Because every time you want a bond, every time you wanna hit them with something, the EDU goes up, the bond's paid, another bond's paid off, EDU doesn't go down, it always stays, EDU goes up. So, again, I don't believe in the EDU. Because, let's
Yes,
put it this way, if your bond's 360,000 and you raise 360 this year, and 360 next year, and next year you're compounding 360 every year for that bond payment. Am I not wrong then?
No, that's the,
No.
each year's bond payment is
so
360.
it's gonna be, yes, for the next 20 years, it'll be that
I
300.
just, yeah, I'm not a fan of the EDU. I'm just,
You'd rather see the rate go up? I mean.
I guess
you
that
have
was
to
gonna be my
cover-
question.
You have to cover the bond payment.
I get it, but not for the EDU, it's not fair.
Well,
So,
Perhaps you could tell us, not tonight, obviously, what the rate increase would be if it weren't.
We're talking about rents through the roof right now in this town,
Mhm.
anywhere in the state. Royal Mills, EDU, how many units are in there?
250.
So 10 grand increase in their sewer bill.
Yeah, ballpark, but if the rate increase was approved to, they'd be about 10,750
So where do you think they're gonna get that money?
through a rent increase.
Okay. Taxes go up. Which they're probably going to. Where they gonna get that money? So the $2,700 a month rent or the $2,200 a month rent is gonna go to $2,500. Because it's infamous that landlords blame the tax increase for the rents that go up. Even if the taxes go up $300, they raise it up $1,200 a year and they blame the taxes go up. It's a revenue generator, right? That's why. I mean, I'm one, but I've been anti-EDU since it went into place.
Okay, so would you like us to bring in alternate options for the public hearing that, or another option as far as doing a rate increase overall?
We can do that. I mean, we approved having a bond. We approved the work. We have to pay for it.
Mhm.
So,
I think if you could bring other options, a few other options.
Okay,
And what it comes down
it
to,
wouldn't be a few though. I mean, it's
Well-
either rate or it's
it's
EDU
EDU
or rate.
or rate, so, but we can propose
Yeah.
another one as well.
whatever you could do would be great. It just, I think that the theme that is gonna come out is, and again, you said it perfectly, if I can quote your words,
Uh-oh.
it sucks. It does. The
I
whole-
say that privately.
Sorry.
Yes.
I'll take
Yeah.
credit for it. It does. I mean, no matter how you look at it. I think that the theme with everybody, and the most calls I've gotten are from the seniors. And it hasn't been about this at all. It's been overall. And Mr. Reed said it, I'm not gonna quote you tonight, but Mr. Reed said it, tonight, where they get hit the hardest. You can go out and make some extra income. Whether it's, if your bill goes up $100, mine's gonna go more than this, but if it goes up $100, there's some way throughout the year I can get another $100. As somebody who's 80 years old and has no other means of income and everything's going up around them, the question comes, what do I do? And I don't have the answer as a counselor, but what do I do? I have this much money and I have this many bills and everything is going up. So where do I suffer? And I lived in town for 50 years, 60 years. So, I think that's the reality. And when people call me, I can only speak for me, is with everything, it is what is gonna come out of my pocket. They know the police gonna come, the fire's gonna come, they know they have to pay the sewer. But what is coming out of my pocket? The snow's gonna get plowed, So they're not really complaining. It's more, I think a lot of people are nervous. Where am I gonna get this money to live? You know, and there's a lot of uncertainty. We all know in the country, you know, we share the school department tonight, they don't know, you know, if they're gonna get this much money or that much money, and this is gonna be affected. And there's people getting pink slips, you know, everybody's nervous. So if there's any way you can tweak any of this without raising some of this, you know, I really appreciate it, because and I'm gonna ask the same thing of the town,
Okay.
so.
It might be a hybrid where it's, instead of 35, it's 10, and then a larger increase, whatever.
I mean, our rate, the rate that we charge, correct me if I'm wrong, is still way at the bottom of the list as far as,
That's
You
part of
win
the
the
communities on the list where the bottom
Maybe.
4, I believe,
Maybe
this year,
even,
this
yeah.
past year. So,
okay.
So basically,
Do every
rather
other
than,
community have EDUs?
that's a great question, Council President.
I can answer that, not many,
No.
that's why the rate's high,
Mhm.
because they're not doing EDUs. Jim?
You know, where's it gonna cut? I've been here a long time, so. But they do have a line item for capital. So whether you've got a capital budget of X, and you have to recover it, whether you do it by EDUs or whether you do it by flow, it's still a capital debt that you have to pay. So they do, all of them have it. It's just how they calculate it. Like Block Islands is in the rate. They have their capital debt, and that's bottom line in their budget. Debt service is a line item. And it gets factored in by gallons or whatever the unit is by, this is convoluted, so you don't wanna know that, but in general, it's there. So it's how you decide to collect that money. I mean, you could put all the debt service in the bottom and say, okay, debt service for current population is X.
And Jim, I've always.
I know, you and
I would personally rather hit the homeowner with a usage of water, not a full minimum usage, because what's fair is fair. If I only use 1,000 gallons, Mary Beth uses 10,000 gallons, she should be paying 10,000 gallons, which she will, because it's, once you get over that minimum height. But if mine's $240, I think that's what it is right now, $240 for an EDU,
Are we talking debt service, Council?
all together. Like,
The minimum would be, 306.
so 306, and if I don't use that much water, and it should be 200, I'm actually hitting the taxpayer or the homeowner
You
for
and-
$106 more than what they.
You and I have had this discussion.
We've gone back and forth, and I know we argued with the council back then, and I know it was 3-2.
The only thing I could say to that, and I agree with you on a lot of, I mean, what Jason said and what everybody's been saying, this whole economy, not only here in my community, in the world, it's terrible. I could use Mary Beth saying it, but it does. And so, but I want to just talk about the minimum because we've had this.
So let me just use it this way, I have a house that has a cesspool right next door to me. I won't tie in for one reason. I've been paying $225 for the last 10 years to pump my cesspool, a year. $250 was the last time. Going up $25 in 10 years to pump my cesspool.
You're getting a break because mine costs over $400.
Depends who you call. Call Happy Guy, the guy with the yellow truck. He's
Friendly
guy.
friendly septic.
You know?
He's good. He just got a free
He's
advertisement.
$250. He's $250.
Please stop promoting.
Right? But
We didn't promote the right company.
it's not Dave knows a guy. Dave knows. So. What I'm saying is, these are business owners that are still charging what they were charging 8 years ago. Previous to that, I had PJ Cesspool. That was my own, it's a whole different story. But for the last 8 years, he's no longer in business. So, again, why would I tie my house into the sewer? No, it's a 2-family, I'm gonna get hit $612 right off the bat, when I gotta put that on my tenants.
I wanna go back, you had a statement about minimum use, I just wanna, I mean, we've gone through this a dozen times, but, and that's not on the agenda really for tonight's budget, but there are fixed costs. And that's what you're trying to do, is establish, if nothing goes on, you still have that fixed cost. You have to maintain a staff level in anticipation that you as a mom and pop are gonna turn it over to your son and daughter, and they're gonna have a family of 5. So that facility, but you still have to have the same staff. DEM mandates a staff requirement. And so you've got basic requirements at the plant to run the permit. That was the reason the minimum wage. We can, I don't wanna belabor the minimum wage, but we will look at, I will help Jeff look at different options on the capital, whether it's EDUs or debt service, a line item for debt service, and figure it out that way.
Are we, mandated for a certain, that is 12%, correct, if you're late on your bill, correct?
Believe so.
It's actually, yeah, exactly.
We lowered that from 18% to 12.
If everything's on the table, just throwing it out there, are we able to raise that?
We lowered it, so I can't see why you couldn't raise it. We went from 18 to 12.
Well, if we were to raise that, say 1%, what would that do?
On delinquent balances, I would have to take a look at that, Councilman, to compare what we've collected so far this year. I think ballpark, I just did the March report today. I believe ballpark, we've collected about $500,000 in prior year usage bills through the end of March, and I think 60 or 70,000 of that was penalties, so I would have to take a
We're doing
ballpark.
such a good job collecting that our.
Which is good.
And interest are
But
less.
I think if that could be an option, possibly, if people
That
should.
used to be a, I want to call it Semino fact, that he adjusted that up and down as interest and caused havoc with revenues, because it would be, hey, we're gonna collect $1 million in late fees, and all of a sudden, we've only did 500,000.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we're 500,000 short in our budget, because, so we gotta be, so you gotta be careful on that.
You never
because-
collected fees in that amount. I mean, you're talking.
On the tax side, I'm talking about
Oh,
our side.
all right.
Our side, it was, he had budgeted nearly 2.5 million, and it was only like 1.9 of collection. So it ended up being where we were shorthanded in the
See,
end.
I understand you can't depend on it, but I also understand your point too, and what's fair is fair. If people have an obligation to pay this on time, and if we all pay our bills on time and Sarah doesn't, Sarah pays the penalty. But the same thing with the sewer usage, again, it comes down to the senior who doesn't
So maybe.
doesn't use the same amount of usage as everybody else,
So maybe you can take a look at, if it weren't an EDU and it was just in the rate, maybe you can take a look at, I'm sorry, I know this is a lot of work, so maybe you can take a look at if that minimum was lowered from where it is now to some, it can't go to actual usage, I'm sure. And then a subsequent rate increase, I mean, just different combinations and scenarios that might help the seniors that we're talking about. Or I think you said shower once a week. What did you
You
say?
said every other day.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
Because they don't go out and they're chilling out at their house. Even on Sundays, I might skip one. I mean, come on.
I really don't need to know that. Thank you. TMI.
Don't come over on Sunday.
Obviously.
So I do have more of a serious question. I know with our town budget, it's super majority, still stays the same with sewer. It's not super majority, it's majority, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanna point that out.
Same thing with the civic center.
Civic center, same thing. So the only one is super majority is the town budget. I just wanna make that clear.
And if I could just add one thing, Council President, we will look at, of course, different scenarios and come back in a couple of weeks with an option or two. To go on, to add on to what the superintendent stated and what Mr. Jeremy has stated about fixed costs. when you add up the facilities fixed costs, including the line items Jeff mentioned, everything else that you see when we send you the budget of admin fees, salaries, insurance, everything else. When you add that up, 69 cents out of every dollar at the sewer plant is a fixed cost. So our wiggle room is within 31 cents of that dollar. We will absolutely come back with alternatives or an alternative or two for the council, but I just ask you to please keep that in mind. It's tough. Trying to find that in cuts, and I know you're not asking that, but in cuts, unfortunately, most of it's going to be the revenue side.
Well, there are minimum staffing, as Mr. Jeremy has said, but this year there have been changes in DEM. We've worked with DEM long and hard about odor control and trying to get that under control. There's been expense associated with that. Actually, moving the sludge is a huge increase in expenses as far as that goes. And those go maybe a little hand in hand. That's never been proven, but we're still doing what we need to do. And DEM still has some asks of us to try to make sure that the order, which we all want, short of throwing, and I always say the high karate into the, the aftershave into the water. That's not what we want. So we're trying to eliminate the actual smell. So the costs have been, between moving the sludge and working with DEM to come up with changes at the plant to help prevent those odors. So, but if you guys could do that, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Council.
Yeah.
A quick question about the date of this vote. Would it make sense to do all three of them the same night we do the vote? We just for those that didn't hear, we're gonna vote on May 8th.
I think we actually talked about doing that.
I believe that is the plan, Councilman, because our first public hearing will be 22nd.
Okay.
And I think our second public hearing is
It's May 6th.
5-6,
Yeah.
and then it would follow by vote.
Followed by a
Yes.
mention afterwards.
Any questions for Jeff, or Tony, or Jim? Again, this is a workshop for the council. We'll have 2 public hearings coming on. Hearing none? Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. One more to go.
Thank you.